Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Boardroom, where, as always, we are meeting with some of Malta's business leaders to understand the most pressing issues of the moment and to answer your questions about all the questions that are on our lips at the moment. As always, we are streaming live on Facebook, and if you're with us, please do join the conversation and add your questions or comments for our interviewees below. If you don't manage to catch us live, then you can watch later on who'swho.mt, Malta's leading business portal. Now, today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, and that is corporate social responsibility, CSR. And particularly, we're talking about businesses that have pivoted to do good, to do well for our society at this time, perhaps inspired by the pandemic, or maybe they were doing it before and they're doing it even more now. And to help us understand more about this brilliant topic, we're going to be meeting with Helga Ellul. Helga is the president of the CORE platform since 2015. CORE was set up as the national CSR platform for Malta, and it promotes and raises awareness of corporate citizenship, among other things. And we're also meeting with Roberta, Lepre, who is the managing director of Weave Consulting, which engages the business community to adopt sustainable practices and have a more positive impact on society. Helga and Roberta, welcome to the Boardroom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So first question, Helga, I would love to know, where are you joining us from today? Where are you in lockdown?
Well, obviously, I'm in my home office because I am 65 plus, so I'm very homebound. Thanks God I have my office set up at home. But I must say I have learned in the last, a month, a lot on online, which I didn't use as much before, but now got very used to Zoom, Teams, and whatever you name it, and find it actually quite enriching, because I'm not wasting time at traffic, and also I can plug in a lot of webinars. A lot is happening online, so one can update oneself constantly. I find it very good.
That's brilliant, Helga. Roberta, what about you? Are you at home?
I'm home as well, Joe. Although I have to say I've been set up for quite a while, so it's not the COVID situation which has brought this for me, but as a mom as well, I have always done the bulk of my work at home, except for when I was out on meetings and meeting clients, of course. But my desk work was primarily always done from home. So what this has done for me really is it has made my clients be more accepting to receiving help and support online, which is great for me.
Absolutely. And how wonderful that we can meet this way without having to leave our houses and connect. So we're going to be talking about CSR today. And I know that obviously you and we are all very passionate about CSR. It's a topic we talk about a lot, but perhaps some of our viewers aren't 100% clear on what CSR is. So Helga, I'll come to you first. Could you just give us a brief introduction? What is corporate social responsibility?
Well, for me, the way I understand it, it is a responsibility of enterprises for the impact they have on all their stakeholders, the employees, their suppliers, but also the public and the environment. So for me, actually, it is a self-regulating philosophy in business. So it is right across your business, because it integrates the social, the environment, your consumers, human rights concern, ethical and good governance. And it's something which you have to apply in your day-to-day business decisions and in your operations.
Brilliant. That's so clear. Roberta, is there anything you'd add to that?
No, I think it was very clearly explained. Maybe what I would like to add is, because sometimes there is confusion between corporate social responsibility and sustainability. Whereas they are essentially intertwined, because corporate social responsibility is ultimately a commitment to contribute to sustainable development. And as Helga said, sustainable development is not just the environmental side of sustainability, but there's also the human side of sustainability, and also the governance aspect, which we don't often talk about. So it's essentially businesses working towards a form of development which is sustainable. And in order to do that, we also need to accept and acknowledge that sometimes the way we operate as businesses is counterproductive to sustainability. So we need to really start from there, recognizing that sometimes we are having a negative impact, redress those negative impacts, and then move forward to contribute to a more positive impact. But unless we really acknowledge where we're not doing so well, it will just be superficial. It's what is called greenwashing, essentially.
Exactly. That was, in fact, something I was going to bring up. Obviously, some people from the outside might look at CSR and say, oh, it's just an opportunity for businesses to greenwash or to whitewash even what they're doing, their practices, and just to hide things under good public relations about the little bit that they're doing good, but hiding the bad that they're doing. Helga, coming to you on that. I mean, is greenwashing part of CSR? Is it a concern that the public should have, or generally is it very positive?
No, I think it is a concern because, like you said, a lot of it sometimes it's not understood. And I think even at companies, they see it. Is it trying to be philanthropic? Is it trying to be how shall I say, charity? That is not CSR. In fact, one of the most important things is that CSR, first and foremost, has to start internally. It has to be part of your organization, of your beliefs with your employees, with your suppliers. So, because it has to be as well with your employees, the whole company, it has to be cascaded down. It's not just what the top person says, but the belief, and you all together work in this environment. So it's empowerment of your employees. It's obviously the legal requirements, but also to help your whole team to administer what you want as a company to do in a good way. So if you don't do it internally, it will be, I think it will be counteract. You will not get a benefit. But I know that, I mean, obviously I'm very passionate about it because I have practiced it a long time with Playmobil when I was there. And I know, and I always tell businesses, it pays. It might sound very crude, but it pays your business if you do it because you get the refund on it. If you have your employees totally embraced in your philosophy, working with you, they will be your ambassadors. They will be outside and saying, I love to work for this company. I mean, we are doing this, it's good communication. You use all the skills you have. So you get all this, and we'll come to it, what came out of this crisis maybe later where we see all that. But then even you have to be with your supply chain, with your suppliers, it has to be a win-win. You cannot ride shotgun on somebody else. It will be short-lived, you see, because when you come into a crisis and you need help, then you need all that. So, I mean, it is actually, if you embrace it and do it properly, it will pay your business.
Absolutely. And Roberta, I'll come to you. Helga, you mentioned, at the moment, CSR is very much in the limelight, possibly more than ever. We're realizing, what businesses have to take on and the value that they can bring to our communities in a crisis. And Roberta, what would you say is the role of CSR during COVID? What have we seen it to be?
I think it's crucial in the sense that there are various segments of our communities, and so the stakeholders of the businesses who are at risk. So really and truly in terms of CSR, I think companies, first of all, need to identify all of their stakeholders, who they are, and the level of threat that they are experiencing. Also starting internally, so safeguarding employees' jobs is just one aspect. Continuity of supplies and services is also another aspect. So there are all these immediate threats that businesses need to understand and address. But then there are also the changing trends going forward, anticipating how society is going to evolve and understanding the role of business in this new society, in this new normal. So what is the purpose of the business in the immediate term and the long term, and how do we need to change or adapt to be able to really address these changing trends?
Wonderful. And Helga, what are your thoughts, especially at the moment around COVID? What role does CSR have to play to help society in this crisis?
I mean, Joe, what we have seen, what I've seen with companies I'm working, is first and foremost how the companies looked straight away after the employees. They knew how important that they have no business without employees, and they felt obviously what they are experiencing. So I saw as well from companies from top to bottom, everybody was ready to take a pay cut. I saw employees really sort of helping these companies in the time now they had. For example, one of the companies did an online platform within 3 weeks. If you would have told them that they had to do it, they would have that impossible.
That's true.
But they managed it. And it's amazing, the communication now as well between the CEOs with the team. I mean, even though it's remote and it's online, but the commitment, it is exceptional, really, where you see them, these values in a crisis, how they come out.
Well, that's, isn't it? I mean, we do say that you see true colors come out in a crisis. So that's absolutely wonderful. And Helga, I know you've mentioned that one of the positive things we've seen out of this is the support local movement. Is this an important thing to come out of CSR? Businesses supporting each other, local organizations supporting each other. What light does that shine on CSR?
No, I think for me it is very, very important, because I always felt that in Malta we had this great admiration for everything foreign. So whenever something was foreign, it was actually perceived to be better than locally. And then foreign workers, because we didn't have the skills, rather than trying to use what we have locally for the best possible. And I mean, as I know from my previous, where I had a lot of employees, they were Maltese employees. And when you skill them and when you train them, they were exceptional and just as good as any foreign employees or whatever. And I think now in this crisis, we are realizing that we need to look. And there's this think tank now going on education in general. It's something we should have done a long time ago. Now the crisis maybe made us aware that we really need to do it. So it needed this crisis to push certain things which were actually already necessary before. But now they came out. And I think it is very important that we first and foremost use our local talent and also our local businesses. I mean, we have seen now, I mean, the supply quickly from our small shops delivering home. I mean, people were exceptionally, because they were very unprepared when you think of it, and yet they rose to this emergency in such a great way. And I think people are realizing now, even consumers, that locally is safer. And it's not only in Malta, I think generally there's this global thing that will change a bit, where businesses are looking much more now on the security of supply.
Exactly. Yes.
Home. You know, that will come a lot. And I think even here, I think especially in our case where, let's say, like our local products on vegetables and things were looked down, our farmers were not appreciated. I think it's about time we realized how important they really are for us.
Absolutely, that's brilliant.
Yes.
So Roberta, what would you add on to that about the idea of supporting our own community? Because that is what CSR is all about, and that's what this crisis has shown us, the importance of looking after our own.
Yes, we always say that CSR is a win-win in the sense that it's good for the broader community, but it's also good for the business. And I think this is an excellent example, because sourcing supplies locally is a way to support the local community. But as Helga said, it's also a matter of security of supplies, because now we're seeing people who source supplies and services looking at sourcing them closer to where they are based, rather than just going for a cheaper option, perhaps, where they source supplies from overseas. Now that that issue might become a little bit problematic. So in terms of security of those supplies, we are looking for solutions which are closer to home. So that makes sense also from a business point of view. Perhaps the cost might be a little bit higher, but you have continuity of supplies. And I think we need to have this conversation also on a more national level. If we look at our food security, for example, we know that we depend a lot on imports. So how long-term, how sustainable, how secure is that approach? Shouldn't we be looking at supporting more production of food locally so that our communities are secure in terms of their food production and supplies?
Absolutely. It's such an interesting thought that it's a conversation, like you say, that we weren't really having in the past, but is so important. And
Yes.
I'd love to know sort of, Roberta, coming to you first, if I'm a small company and I'm thinking, right, okay, I want to give back to society, I want to give back to my community, I'm inspired by what's happening all over the world. How do I start? How do I appoint somebody to start thinking about this in our organization? How do I choose the cause that is going to be close to our heart? Do I choose a big cause? Do I choose something really small? What's the best way to get started in developing a CSR strategy?
Okay, I would say that there is no one best way, in the sense that every organization has its own personality, its own aspirations, its own goals. So usually what we do is we start with a conversation with the management to identify what the purpose of that business is. So beyond profit making, what is it that you are there for? What value are you seeking to create for your stakeholders in the immediate, but also in the medium to the long term? From there, we also carry out an assessment, which is based on an international framework, where we look at the different areas of CSR. So we look at the human capital aspect, also the environmental impact, and also the governance structure of the organization. And we identify those areas where perhaps the company is not doing so great, and we acknowledge that. But it also gives us an opportunity to identify the strengths of the company. And this usually comes as a positive surprise. So then we build on those strengths, obviously. So for one company, it might make sense to prioritize, let's say, the environment. For another company, it might make more sense to prioritize community development. So it very much depends on the DNA of the company and where the company wants to be in the future.
Absolutely. Helga, anything to add on to that? Anything that you would say? I mean, especially perhaps for really small organizations, what's this? I mean, that was such a great explanation there, Roberta, but, how do we get started and how do we mobilize our teams when we're already so stretched?
This is not an easy one. And like Roberta said, there is not one fit or a very straightforward answer. I think if you are a bit of a larger company or whatever, I would or I advise always and say, what are your client base? Where do you make your money? Do you make your money in the pharma industry or whatever? Do you make your money like we did with toys and children? And then maybe focus where actually your business derives its profit and give back to that part. So you give back to children, you give maybe back to hospitals or sick people. That could be a bit of a guideline if you want. But then the biggest issue is, Joe, with smaller companies. And obviously, as we know, in Malta, 90% of our businesses are not even small and medium, are more micro. And they always struggle because they think they can't do it. But then when you look into the smaller companies, which could literally be the corner shop or the small mechanic or whatever, they have their, first and foremost, their employees mainly from the areas and their consumers, their customers as well in their locality. So what they should do is to try and put their CSR towards their locality where their business is embedded in. And what we try to always say as well is go together with the stakeholder of your community, which would be the local government, which would be NGOs working in your community, your young people in the community, schools or whatever. And then the businesses could group together because maybe one alone would be too small to do something. But if they group together and then at a locality say, all right, what are our sort of the priorities? We would need a playground or we would need to embellish it like this. Then they could go together and do that. And I think as businesses as well, they would again get the recognition from their customers and they, all right, if I have to buy this, I go to Chico because he helps in our community. It actually does, in a funny way, pay you because you are recognized that you are part and give back to this community where you get your business out.
Brilliant.
Yes.
And Helga, we've had this conversation before, but right now you think that there's so many businesses doing so many good things and we don't know about them. So I'd love to know from you at the moment, just in a nutshell, which are the companies that, you know, internationally, locally, that you feel, wow, they have really gone and made a fantastic impact. They've turned lemons into lemonade and they've used CSR at this time.
I mean, when you see it, obviously, when you see it internationally, you see the impact on CNN to the world, and you see how businesses all over the world have, in a crisis where they are actually hurt themselves so much and they are actually in a survival mood. They don't even know if their business will continue to exist or how is it going to exist. They went out straight away and helped the community. And I mean, you can name a few, let's say, like Hertz in America, that my cars can be used by the people, by the doctors and the nurses, hotels offering rooms for them because they couldn't go home to their families. But we have seen that also in Malta, where in fact manufacturing companies have used knowledge in manufacturing to try and make equipment for healthcare, and local companies or making masks. We have seen small restaurants delivering food for NGOs. I mean, you name it. And I actually feel that they are not getting enough clap on the shoulders for what they are doing, because they have so much on their own plate to try and survive. And yet, this solidarity, this spirit was there without having to tell them. Nobody told them. It was just a feeling, we are all in it together. You know, and it's amazing, like you saw them all together. I mean, in this short time, what all has been done, from an artist, from the sports people to the business people, everybody helped straight away and did their part and their share, what they could give.
Well, that's wonderful. Very, very rousing, definitely. And it's true, you know, they do deserve an incredible pat on the back. Like you say, just pure survival is an issue at the moment, and yet they are choosing to give so much of their energy to the community. Roberta, any great examples from you off the back of that?
I think Malta has been a great example. So just to build on what Helga was saying, I think even the agility with which we have transitioned to working remotely and ensuring continuity of services and supplies. I mean, it came upon us very, very quickly. To me, it was in a sense pleasant, because usually one of my recommendations when I draft a CSR report, especially for the bigger companies, is to consider remote working for a number of their employees for two reasons: to facilitate work-life balance, but more than that, also to reduce the emissions and the traffic congestion within the area. And obviously, before this happened, maybe some were a little bit reluctant, hesitant, afraid. But with this happening, we managed to do it, and do it really quickly and really efficiently. So I think that's one great example. Another example, I would say most of our supermarkets, even the smaller ones who are not set up for e-commerce, they have managed to transition really quickly using technology which is readily available. We have seen also some supermarkets partnering up with technology companies to be able to facilitate e-commerce. So I think we've done really well here locally. We've been really agile, really quick. And while supporting the communities, these businesses have also ensured their own survival, because unless they adapted in that way, they wouldn't have survived the past week.
Exactly. I think that's such a great example to see the agility of these, even some of these small companies, and even some companies that have been born of the pandemic in order to, to give solutions to problems that we've been facing. A lot of the people that we've spoken to on the boardroom over the past few weeks have sort of mentioned the pause, the great reset button that we've been able to press in the past few weeks. That, if we hadn't had COVID, we wouldn't have been able to do. When else would we have been able to, as a global community, take these decisions and make these big steps forward?
Yes.
Do you think that this is the big opportunity that we hope it is? Do you think that we can see long-term changes for the benefit of our communities? Roberta, I'll come to you first.
I think, yes. I think the situation is promising. I don't want to give the impression that it's all good going forward. So there are going to be challenges, and there are some risks, and there are also great risks. but there are also some huge opportunities, especially when it comes to climate change mitigation. We know that we had hit very dangerous levels, and probably we would have never resorted to the measures that we are now applying in relation to COVID. And I refer to a study which I believe Love Malta published last week or earlier this week, I'm not sure, where we saw that a number of mostly the younger respondents claimed that they would be willing to comply with similar measures in relation to climate change. So we are seeing as well a trend where consumer behavior and consumer acceptance of certain things is going to improve and become more mainstream, so to speak. So definitely there are these great opportunities. I think we really need to make sure that come a solution to the COVID situation, we don't forget anything and we just go back to our old ways, which probably will not serve us for much longer.
Absolutely. And in line with that, I mean, Helga, obviously businesses have a huge responsibility, but policymakers also have a huge responsibility. Some business owners will say, well, unless the government tells me what I should be doing, then I'm not going to do it. What at this stage, what opportunity exists for the policymakers? You know, is this an opportunity? Should they be responsible?
Definitely. I think, Joe, what is happening, in fact, as a core platform, and we had talks now recently as well, we have always said that we need actually a national CSR plan. We need government involved too. The businesses will be the drivers, they will be the doers, but we need to focus as a nation. Where do we want to go? What are our priorities? And the government needs to be part of it, because they will know that what legislation, what regulations need to be done to support the initiatives, but then the businesses will implement. We had very good discussions, and I must say I'm very positive that it will happen, because even at EU level, Malta is one of the very few countries which doesn't have it. And I think that is necessary, because, and you are seeing it now as well, like with business institutions like the Chamber, working very closely with the government to see what are the needs. What are, I mean, like we will have a problem as well on good governance now, to see as well as directors, if they have cash flow problems, there needs to be a relaxation of some laws and rules. Otherwise, you would be in a problem with a director that you cannot actually run this company. So there has to be a lot of regulations and rules where government and businesses have to work very, very closely together. See, so it can't be business alone. They need the regulators, they need the government to help and support. And I think the government is doing it, I must say. There has been a very good and a very fast reaction from government in the steps they are doing, and one can feel it. And I think it will happen now. What one has to be a bit careful, not to forget so quickly what is happening now. And I don't think we will, because I think we are not yet out of it. So there's still a time to go. So we still have to continue a bit this way. But I think what one needs to find then is the right balance of using what we have learned and what can be done. It can't be always like it is now. There will have to be a sort of a balancing, but find the right balance and use some of it. In fact, when we talk about a national CSR plan, we link it very much to the SDGs, because the SDGs are actually what needs to be done as CSR. So you can use your CSR policies, and even as a company, what are the SDGs you want to support? And some of the large companies do that. They said, all right, we want to support education and innovation. And the plans should be over a period of time, 3, 4, 5 years, because you can't do it in 1 year as a one go. This is a bit of one-time effect, but it will not. You can use it as a project to learn and to maybe then have the right instruments to do it over a longer period. But these are the things which will happen. And I think I see them happening. So yes, I'm very positive that a lot of changes will be there to stay, will adapt to it. And I think what we have proven again, and Malta has always done that, I always had a strong belief in it, it's flexibility and it's adaptability, how fast we can adapt and how flexible we are. And this is such a strength.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, when we look at the future that perhaps we were all feeling a bit worried about before, do we think that that the positive that we can take from COVID is that economy and economic development can live side by side with
Yes,
well-being and environmental sustainability?
yes,
Roberta,
yes.
can it happen?
Certainly. I think it sounds maybe a little bit idealistic, but this is something that both Helga and I think we have been advocating for quite a while now, shifting from the idea of measuring success through GDP only, or to the bottom line only, but factoring in other indicators of well-being. And we have seen how in reality all these factors affect each other. It's a little bit like an organism, where one part of the body, what's happening in one part of the body impacts the other. So we really need to really factor in all these different elements of well-being. And it's also an opportunity for us as a country and globally, I think, to stop this, let's say, race towards the bottom line and really taking time to reflect on what it is that we're doing with our business, what value are we creating, what impact are we leaving, and who is benefiting at the end of the day from what we are doing, making sure that the wealth or the well-being that is created is also fairly distributed so we can all progress better. So I think, yes, there's definitely a lot more that can be done. I think we are seeing the relevance of all of this now. Going back also to the previous point in relation to partnerships between the business community and the government, I think something also that can be done is to start integrating these aspects of sustainability also, let's say, in public procurement. So when the government buys services or supplies from the market, let's not just look at the price. Let's look at who we're buying from, where those supplies are coming from, and who is ultimately benefiting from that purchase. I think we really need to transition towards that. We have talked a lot about it. It's not a new concept, but I think we need to start applying it a little bit more often.
Fantastic. Helga, anything to add on to that?
I think it will happen. And to be honest, Joe, I mean, we have been saying it, I think, pre the crisis, that we have seen already quite a number of the young people buying into it. We have seen it on climate change, a lot of the young people. And I used to say to tell businesses, look at your future customers. If you don't change, they don't like what you are doing. So if you don't change, you won't have a business. And I think it's happening faster than ever now. So some of it will stay for sure. And I think not only the young ones, I think everybody has now realized that somehow we have overdone it maybe a bit. We need to find a different balance of how to have the right way forward, where we all gain. Everybody gains.
Absolutely. So to wrap up, what, Helga, is the one most important thing that businesses can and should take from this period?
I think what they already are realizing, how important, first and foremost, their people are. I think they always did, but more than ever, they realized it now, that if you don't have the right environment for your people, the right empowerment, listen to them, what they can do, that they have to work maybe some bit from home, then come back. I think the appreciation of your workforce has really accelerated very big and they came out. I mean, the people really supported their businesses. And I think that it has been there, but it has now come to the forefront. And I think also the need to change. I mean, change never, people always resist it. It's never something, I mean, I love it, but a lot of people resist it. But I think everybody has realized now that you need to look, you need to use also this time now in the crisis to look at your business and to see what is the business you want to have in future, to use this time, this transition now to transform, to embrace digital and technology. It has proven you need it. It's a must now. So all things is coming out. And I think that's what businesses will take. They will be much more ready to change, ready to take a bit of risk in new things and appreciate much more how much they need their people.
Absolutely. And Roberta, your final thoughts on this?
I would say communication. I think we have seen the importance of talking to each other, both with the peers, maybe within our industry, also other industries, different stakeholders like the government, our clients, really learning, assessing what we are doing and co-creating new outcomes. I think the emphasis should be on that, on building these partnerships, pooling resources. And by doing this, sometimes as well, it might make the difference between a business that does not manage to overcome this time and a business which does manage to overcome these challenges. I think we really need to start working together better.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both. Both of you ladies I greatly admire, not just for your incredible success in business, but for your ability to bring goodness to that business. So thank you for your advice. Lovely to see you as always. And we'll see you all viewers as well on the next episode of The Boardroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Have a nice weekend.
Bye.